Welcome to Cleve Style Magazine, where we bring creativity to life. I'm your host, Ciarra Nelson, here with Cynthia Lee Roberts. She is the owner and author of Restricted. This is a true and raw story that you just don't want to miss about love, redemption, faith, challenges, and much, much more about finding love in unconventional ways. And I just love your story. First of all, I want to mention that this will be in Cleve Style Magazine. We'll have the information for you later in the show, so you got to watch. But just want to talk to you about Restricted. Thank you, first of all, for being a guest today.
Thank you for having me.
This is a phenomenal story. If you're just looking at this book and looking at the cover and the back of the book, for 30 years, you were a deputy sheriff and you found love with someone behind bars.
Yes, ma'am.
And you don't hear about that every day. When you do hear about it, people always have things to say, and it's just, ooh, love behind bars, But you found your love. And it's here. Your love is actually here. He's in the studio.
Oh, yes.
So,
yeah.
Talk a little bit about Restricted and what brought you, just about the journey first. How did you meet him? You were a deputy sheriff.
Yes.
And what happened there?
Well, I had my share of not so good relationships in the past, and they turned out to be to my detriment because I consider myself a hopeless romantic and just a lover of love. So to my detriment, I kind of went head first. My father said I think with my heart instead of my head. So those relationships didn't pan out. So I just said, I'm going to take a hiatus. I'm just going to take my time, focus on me. I had a 5-year-old son at the time, so I was a single parent. I said, I'm just going to focus on me. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she was sort of not searching, but she was in the same place that I was. And she said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to write everything we want in a partner for that person. So we
brought it on paper.
Right on paper. Right. So we wrote the criteria that we wanted, and it was the traditional tall, dark, and handsome, good job, 6-figure salary,
check.
A house with the picket fence and things like that sort. So we put all of that down, and she said, now let's put it in an envelope and just randomly put it in the Bible, and then at that point, just let it go. So I'd say about 3 years had transpired since then. And I was coming to work and, just regular routine and things of that sort. And he was in the day areas, what they call where the inmates can make phone calls or talk with their attorneys and stuff like that. And Miss Ciarra, I don't know how to say it, but it was love at first sight. He looked up at me and I looked, I know that story, cliche, kind of corny. But I was just like, that's my person. But of course I was like, this couldn't be true. So I kind of,
you're like thinking I'm at work and to be a conflict.
I've been working 3 years prior to that. So no other person caught my attention like that. I wasn't even thinking along those lines. And when I first seen him and he seen me, it was just like this, I know that's corny, but that's what happened, And from then, he was there approximately like 2 months because he had came back and won his appeal. He was originally sentenced to 17 years.
Oh, wow.
And he did all his law work and he ended up getting 11 years knocked off of his sentence.
Oh.
So in those 2 months that he was in my facility, we sort of just got to get to know each other. But I never negated my police officer or law enforcement duties. I always kept it separate, my personal life versus my professional life. We always kept it separate.
So when you decided to get him and make this official, you probably heard things from your family, friends, colleagues. What made you feel like, I need to go on? This is it for me. This is my person. I can't go off what other people feel. What gave you the strength and the courage, and how did you go in to get to that part where you said, you know what, I'm going to be with him, I believe it, and this is it?
Well, during the course of those 2 months that we got to know each other, I just felt this sense of he was worth saving. He was worth saving. And just through our conversations and the interaction that we had, it was just sort of that discernment that I got. And the only people that really knew, I definitely kept it away from my colleagues. You know, there was that speculation and that rumor mill, you know, but nobody ever either confronted me or said anything. But the three people that I had shared it with was my mom and my two sisters.
How did they feel?
That's what I'm going to tell you now. My sisters were totally off board. They thought I had lost the screw in my head, like something was wrong with me. But my mother, was just my best friend in the whole world. I didn't tell her anything. She was okay with it. She never brought up the fact that he was incarcerated. She said I even had like this kind of glow over me, right, you know, when I spoke about him. And she never dissuaded me or talked to me as far as not pursuing the relationship with him. And so my mother, with her spiritual background, just the type of person she is, she's definitely a woman of God. I decided that at that moment I was going to step out on faith and go forward with it.
That's true. And still a person, and God still loves them. So I understand how you felt. And when your mother's on board, you think you feel better. Well, listen to your mom when your mom's on board.
When your mother's on board, then okay. This must be, because it's ironic. I had worked there 3 years, and when I met Ralph, all those 3 years I had tried to get her to come up to the facility, take a tour, because it was like daily tour, because it was a brand new facility. So I had to come and get her. I wanted her to come and visit, and let me take her to. I was just so proud, you know. Man. And she was like, nope. But that day I came home and I talked about the fact that I had met my husband. I didn't know it was my husband. I had met Ralph. And she just said it was a glow over me. She hadn't seen me that happy in so long. And she came up to visit. And during the time that she was there, she came to visit him too. Unbeknownst to him, I had set up a visit, so because I really wanted to share that experience with her.
Yeah.
And she had came up there, and I set up a visit for him to meet her. And so that was sort of a big shock to him too. But they hit it off.
Was there a moment where you ever, you know how we say, oh, this is it, but then the doubt kicks in, you know, the doubt. Was there ever a moment where you just like, you know what, you got scared?
Yes, I would say. Now, when Ralph came back, he won his appeal and he got the time there, but he got 6 more years to do. 6 more years to do after we met. So before he left my facility, I had to reckon with myself and say, am I up for this? Am I willing to wait 6 more years? And I toyed with the fact, well, I was by myself 3 years prior to that. So, 6 more years. But like I said, the discernment in me kept saying he was worth saving, and it was worth traveling down the 6-year journey with him. So I would say during that 6-year period, the visitation part, the traveling, because he was in 3 different facilities, only because his level kept lowering. So it was 3 different facilities that I had to went and traveled to back and forth. So it was a little discouraging. I would say basically, or more so in that 5th year, because I knew it was great come home. That was the most
becoming real then.
Yeah, it's becoming real, and I'm like, oh, am I ready for this? Is this something, I've committed my life to this? Is this really something both of us are ready for? Because he's not been in the world for those a long period of time, was a total of 10 years. So he hasn't been in the world. Things keep moving on. Things keep happening. Technology continues to advance. So it was going to be a challenge for both of us.
Okay. Well, tell me about, you got to the point where you said, you know what, I want to put this in a book. I want to share it with other people who may have found the same thing, but they're too scared, or they stop, or they say no, which is so motivating. When you decided to write the book, tell us a little bit about the journey in the book and that process of writing it.
Okay. This book has been 10 years in the making, actually. I always wanted to write a book, and initially it was just going to be about my law enforcement career. But when he came home in the different social circles that we were in, you get that proverbial question, well, how'd you guys meet? And we would share our story. People were just like, mouths dropped. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, really? And you did this and you did that? And the clincher was when we told him that we were still together. 29 years together, 14 years married, So that was the biggest clincher. But I was scrolling through my Facebook one time, and a dear friend of mine, she had just posted on her page that her sister had started a publishing company. And so prior to that, I had reached out to other different people, and I just hit walls, and I just didn't feel that right feeling about proceeding with the people that I had encountered.
Okay.
So I took a chance, I prayed about it, and I contacted her sister. And from the very start, the very first conversation, I knew that she was going to be the vessel to making my dreams as far as being an author come true.
Wow.
And the unique part about her publishing company is I didn't write my book, I spoke it.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, I spoke it because I had no idea how to write a book or how to even get started. Matter of fact, I wrote a little couple of notes down, typed them. After the first conversation, I was just so proud that I did that. So I'm going to send it to you. So she called me back and she was like, we're going to start all over. So it took a year to complete the book. And in that process, I scheduled different consultations with her. And we spoke the book. I spoke the book, and she gave me different homework assignments. So I have to give all the glory to Dawn Owens of Owens Publishing Company, because throughout this process, she's become my mentor, my coach, my friend, and it's just phenomenal things have been happening. She's a phenomenal person.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So you wrote the book.
Yeah.
And you journeyed the book. What do you want readers to take out of the book most without giving it away? What do you want someone, when they sit down and read your book at home, what do you want them to get out of it the most? How do you want them to feel when they're done reading your book?
Okay. Well, on my book, there's 3 subtitles. So the romance part, it's the relapse part, and then it's the redemption.
Talk about each part of those. A little snippet of each. I'll get the book away.
Well, the romance part was those 6 years that he had left to do, and then it's ironic when you're an officer and on the other side of the equation and you're sitting in the visitation room and I could be a people person at the time and I'm very analytical to my fault and, very observant, and I would just be like, wow, I'm on the other side, of this table visiting someone that's incarcerated, So just the romance part of it was he would send me letters. I know it's little.
That sounds romantic. Where did the letters go? Remember the days of letters?
Yeah, the days of letters. It was like the letters were after you come home for a long day at work, deal with all different types of personalities and stuff, just to sit back and relax. And that was like a routine of mine that I developed. I would, at the end of the day, and I would unwind and I'd get in my bed and read the letters that he sent me. And then sometimes we would have cards made up for me. It's just the simple things that matter,
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't out here providing for me, or he wasn't that day-to-day person that took me out to eat or things of that sort.
When you satisfied yourself.
It satisfied my soul deeply, and with me being that hopeless romantic, I was just like, that's my person. That's my person. The relapse part, well, that was a journey within itself, because after being incarcerated for 10 years, like I said, life continues on, the world is still evolving, things are still going on. So when he got back out and got a little glimpse and a little taste of the world, which I was always accustomed to, it sort of overwhelmed him. And prior to meeting him, he had some vices that he had dealt with and some things that he had dealt with as far as addiction. So he's slipped back into that type of thing. And it was a journey within itself, because I had never dealt with someone that had an addiction to that degree, an unlawful addiction at that, So it was a matter of me trying to develop in my mind that I continue on. I waited 6 years.
Yeah.
He's home. And now he's doing this, So I had to really do some soul searching and see if I wanted to proceed on, because did I ever feel like this was something that I was stuck with. I never felt obligated as far as the relationship was concerned. It was always something that I free willingly wanted to do. So I felt like, with him being acclimated or getting back acclimated into the world, I should be there for him as well, to a degree. Because like I said, it never negated my law enforcement responsibilities. To protect and serve was very, very important to me because I had took an oath. I like to say I retired. I never got fired. So
Retired, that's pretty clear.
clear. I retired. I never got fired. I thought there was one incident where, the rumor mill at work had been circulated. So Internal Affairs had called me in. And the sergeant had said, he was like, look, we already know what's going on. Here's his rap sheet. So what I'm getting ready to ask you, I already know the answers to. So just be honest, and that's what I did. I was very honest with it. And they pretty much told me as long as I wasn't committing crimes, because we've heard of other stories like this.
Yes.
And it always seems like, it always turns out for the bad, where the officer is in cahoots.
Something happened.
Yeah, right. It's something detrimental or something bad. Well, I'm very proud of my book because it was a happy story and it was a very good outcome, and things. I always like to think that your past doesn't define who you are.
It doesn't.
Right. And God is a God of second chances. Over my law enforcement career, I had categorized the inmates into 3 different categories. One was the ones that rightfully needed to be there. That's why we have our justice system in place. The second was women and men who are in there innocently.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories.
Yeah, a lot of stories about years and years spent incarcerated, only for them to come out and be found innocent. Then there was the third category where you have individuals that go, they do their time, they want to come back out and be productive citizens. They learned their lesson. It used to be the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Well, I think the system has lost sight of the rehabilitation part.
We need more of that.
Yeah, the corrections, that's the punishment. But the other end of that is the rehabilitation part. And a lot of people in society don't really focus on that. And that's where the judgment comes in. So
But you had no judgment.
yeah,
You saw, like God said, you loved and you brought us so, and then you all got married.
Yeah. When I prayed my prayer about my person, I didn't just get on my knees, Miss Ciarra. I would prostrate, because that's just how serious I was. I was like, Lord, I don't want anybody else. Of course, I grew up in a family where my father and my mother was there. I had 2 other sisters. I was the middle child.
Okay.
So I always felt like my older sister got to do everything. My younger sister got everything. So I always had to prove myself,
You were in the middle.
I was in the middle. So it was always a challenge. I always strive to do better. So I never thought that the person that I would fall for, or that person that would be mine, would be in the yellow jumpsuit with stripes. I'll let that sink in for a little bit.
I understand.
I love being in uniform, but I never thought it was going to be an orange stripe uniform.
But that's beautiful that you were open, because again, a lot of people, when you hear that, like, if you go home and say that, most women to their families are you crazy? Especially if you work there.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
And I found that
prayed
my
about it.
experience when working on units, 7 years of my career working actually on a unit with the inmates. And I found out that when they're taken out of that worldly element and they're by themselves, they totally conform to being that person that maybe they were raised to be, or they become that person that they would want to be, that they always cherish. Out in the world, they had to prove something or meet a status quo. But when you strip all those layers away and you're in a setting where you're left to your own devices, they become a totally different person. And sometimes they just need somebody to believe in them, to take a chance. They take that one chance on them and believe in them.
And that was you. I heard of gold. I love it. I love your story. Tell me one thing. I want you to show the book. tell me one thing you want to say to your viewers out there, and then also where we can find.
Okay. I would want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is a good read. It's a true story. And I was so passionate about writing it. It has such a great and remarkable message about romance, relapse, and redemption. And I think that you will get something out of it. And I wouldn't want to give you advice as far as this book is concerned, just the message that through all things, God prevails and He will direct your path. All you have to do is trust in Him. And you can go to www.authorcynthialee.com. Or you can come in my DMs, cut me up, I'll get you situated.
All right. Thank you so much for your story. I love it. Thank you for your honesty and everything. We love the story. So go out and pick the book up. It's amazing. You can also find more information in Cleve Style magazine. She's in there, restricted, so you can check that out too. You're watching Cleve Style Show, where creativity is brought to life. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Thank you. Thank you.